Negro VMX here, and here are this week's reviews for comics released in the week of August 20th, 2008. We'll start with a few books from last week I didn't get around to. First up is Punisher number 60. I have to profess I was both looking forward to and also dreading this issue, and both for the same reason. This is Garth Ennis's last issue writing the book. Now, I've been hoping he'd go out with a bang, but it comes off more as a whimper. After reading the book a few times, I'm still rather confused as to what actually happened. The ending is strangely poignant, even though I'm not sure exactly what happened with Frank. Somehow he's free in the preview for the next issue, and he was still in custody at the end here, so I don't really know what the hell's going on. The book excerpts dominate the issue, and the entire thing comes off as a lot of plot crammed into a very small spot. It seems to me that Ennis didn't have enough pages to properly end his tale, and I can't help but blame all the book excerpts for this. Next up is Batman Confidential number 20. The next in the story, The Bat and the Cat and the Bat, which has been following Batgirl and Catwoman, and now Batman joined them. I have issues with the Artemis. Everything looks pretty strange, and although I find it cliché to have the fight with Batgirl and Catwoman ripping each other's costumes up, at least the artist is consistent in remembering where the tears are. The story itself still isn't all that interesting, though it's not sleep-inducing either. When I'm not groaning at all the exposition and weird-looking facial expressions, I can at least enjoy it on the level that the interaction between Catwoman and Batgirl is interesting. The ending, which leads up to the ultimate chapter, has Batgirl alone in Arkham, locked in with the Riddler having freed the inmates. Of course, this being a story set in the past, you know that her safety is guaranteed, so to make the last part interesting, it needs to be written a whole lot better than this part was. Well, moving on to this week's books, I don't know if it was that the last issue was late or this one is early, but I got my hands on Punisher number 61. The first part of Girls in White Dresses, which is also the first issue not written by Garth Ennis, has a Mexican man attempting to hire the Punisher to investigate and eliminate a mysterious group that has been kidnapping girls and young women and dumping them back, mutilated horribly. Most of the book concentrates on the threat rather than the Punisher, and although he says he is not a hired hand or a mercenary and refuses the man's money, the similarity between the girls being killed and having lost his own family moves him to see, and I quote, "what the fuck is going on here?" Anyway, the issue is well written. Hopefully Ennis's shoes won't be too big to fill. I would definitely recommend this, though for people with strong stomachs. Next up is Captain America, number 41, and as Ed Brubaker is now on the 16th part of his The Death of Captain America story, it actually seems to be coming to an end, if you can believe that. Arnim Zola is working on a machine seemingly invented by Dr. Doom that will separate the Red Skull from Alexander Lukin. Dr. Faustus turns out to be a traitor to their cause, shaves off his super sweet beard, and actually helps Agent 13 and S.H.I.E.L.D. against the Red Skull before disappearing. Cap stops a political assassination by Sin, which ironically was only supposed to be a wounding, and he also plays poker with the Falcon. And there's also some stuff in there with the fake Steve getting recaptured by some AIM guys who bring them to the Red Skull. But that didn't seem to take up a whole lot of it. Now, I've been hooked on this book for quite a while, and although I felt that the actual issue that dealt with Steve's death was highly assed, since then the book has been on a sharp upward swing. Hopefully the entire epic will be put into a hardcover, much like Planet Hulk was. My only regret is that as a single issue I can't recommend it. It's clearly too much of a part of a larger epic. If you've been following the book, you know already that this is damn good. If not, you'll want to start all the way back with issue 25, which wouldn't even make too much sense unless you read Civil War. Oh well. Next up is Batgirl number 2, and like the first issue, I find it to be rather mediocre. Batgirl now has a partner, Mark, or maybe it's Mark, I don't know how you say it, and together they're going after David Kane and Deathstroke, though Batgirl's adherence to not killing anybody except them is something Mark, whatever, doesn't share. The writing and art are depressingly average, giving us only one good scene where Cassandra is in a coffee shop and is hit on by a former classmate. The rest of the book is all rather mundane. Only get this if you're really into the character. Next up is Batman and the Outsiders, number 10. This one is about an investigation into a mysterious group trying to give superpowers to teenagers and discarding the ones that don't survive the process and feeding them to something called the Parasite, which is obviously not the same parasite as seen in a lot of Superman stories. Batman goes missing and is presumed dead by a lot of the group, though we know he turns out okay. Or do we? The next issue is a Batman Rest in Peace tie-in, so who knows where they're going with this. At least we know that if he does die, it's not from some stupid gargoyle-looking guy. The team struggles without their leader, with Batgirl taking control, but it's not much consolation as they're still pretty much a mess. I had a hard time with this issue since every issue of Batman and the Outsiders, while certainly not bad, is insanely forgettable. And every time I get to the next issue, I've forgotten everything that's transpired. Now, taking each issue as a standalone, it stands up as an average book, but nothing more. This issue is no exception. A much better effort is found in The Brave and the Bold number 16, which has Superman teaming up with Catwoman. The plot itself is rather mundane, with the duo getting their way into an underground auction where a map is being sold to a cave somewhere outside Gotham that the seller believes that Batman would have had major problems with. Assuming it's the Batcave, Catwoman and Superman attempt to stop this, though it turns out to be Clayface's cave that the map leads to. As I said, the plot is nothing special, but where The Brave and the Bold has always shined is not with its plots, but rather its dialogue. The interactions between Superman and Catwoman are great, and everything from the Gotham police asking for Superman's autograph, to Catwoman constantly hitting on the Man of Steel, to my favorite scene where they wear disguises and Selina makes a disguise for Superman that looks enough like Clark Kent to make him uncomfortable. This has always been a fun book with decent artwork, and this issue continues the trend. Definitely recommended. One that I can't bring myself to recommend is Final Crisis, Legion of Three Worlds, number 1. Now, as interested as I am in Superboy Prime character and seeing how he ties into the Final Crisis, the basic fact is that this book seems to have nothing at all to do with Final Crisis and is more of a sequel to the recent Superman and the Legion of Superheroes arc that ran in Action Comics. Although I enjoyed that story, I still never cared for the stories about Legion of Superheroes, mostly because they're confusing as hell. There's too many characters to keep track of, and their personalities wind up becoming rather generic. Though I enjoy some of them, the fact is that there's a lot of them, and bringing in 2 other entirely different teams from alternate legions it's only going to make this a giant clusterfuck. I did, however, enjoy Superboy Prime taking the tour of the Superman Museum, but overall, I can't help but wonder, what in the bloody hell does this have to do with Final Crisis? Next up is a book I've been looking forward to, Flash, number 243. While I'm glad that Iris isn't dead and that it turned out to be trickery by Grodd, I can't help but wonder if the storyline was wrapped up too fast. Grodd defeated too easily, and everything gone back to the status quo before I could have the chance to worry too much. Although most of the city still hates Flash, he has some hope in the end, showing that things will be back to normal pretty quickly. The book was fun and did slake my thirst for it, but in the end, I thought this to be a rather compressed story. Moving on to Justice League of America issue 24 is almost an all-action issue, continuing the League's fight against Amazo. They wind up winning, mostly due to the combined efforts to follow a plan by Batman and Steel. I can't help but wonder if this is going to be one of those things where Steel is suddenly in the League. I mean, we've had Geoforce show up out of nowhere and then suddenly be a member, and then he wound up leaving in a different book, Batman and the Outsiders, which he barely appears in. And then Firestorm appeared out of nowhere with no explanation. Either way, for an issue that is basically one long-ass fight scene, I did enjoy it, mostly due to the fact that both the League and Amazo were excellently utilized and everything came together really well. There's also some stuff in there with the team trying to look into the recent power changes in Vixen and how it relates to similar changes in Animal Man who had similar powers. I can't help but say ugh to that, and I was happy when Vixen was off the team, but she's in the book more as she ever was. Either way, a decent issue worth looking into. Not a whole lot to say about The Spirit, number 20, and Miss Darwin Cook, although Sergio Aragonés's style certainly has a lot of potential for the character. The plot in this is nothing special, but a lot like The Brave and the Bold, it's the interactions and dialogue that makes it shine. Another fine issue of The Spirit. Trinity, number 12, what can I say, this book still sucks. Just like Justice League of America, it's almost all fight scene, with the League fighting the crime syndicate, although the entire thing is much more of a clusterfuck, and I don't care. The backup feature is actually good, with the Riddler trying to investigate all the recent thefts, but he comes to the conclusion that nobody but him could have perpetrated them, and goes on a quest to clear his name. Well, we know Enigma is behind it, but we really don't care. Lastly, to end with Superman Batman number 51, which is about the funniest comic I've read in a while, with Lil Superman and Lil Batman showing up with versions of the Justice League and Injustice League. It's quite obvious who's behind it, and it makes perfect sense to be Mr. and Mrs. Pitalik, but what kills it is how amusing the entire thing is. Some of the best scenes are the origins of Little Batman and Little Superman, Alfred the Butler's reaction to the entire thing, and of course the last page, where you get a look at the Little Injustice League. And if you want a very funny story that it doesn't bother to take itself too seriously, look no further than this issue. Well, man, that was a long one, huh? I'll see you next week, folks. There were a couple of books I didn't get to, but they're going to have to wait for next week.